All right, Sheila, go for it.
Thank you. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Jolly good. I'm better prepared than I thought I was. Um, so this is us. So I'm Sheila Drew from Sadie in Johannesburg, South Africa. Dorcas Webkulu is our colleague in Nairobi. And so I'm sure if there are some really tricky questions that I can't answer, Dorcas will step in. She's much more on the ground than I am. But I am going to keep it short. And I do hope that if there isn't time in the Q&A, I've sort of tried to integration itself. So I really hope I've kept it. So I've just got to move the little Zoom things around so that I can see what I'm doing. And my laptop is telling me my internet connection is unstable. A little bit of context for that: in South Africa, we have been struggling for quite a few years now, less so now, with something called load shedding, which is when our electricity supply parastatal can't keep the lights on. And we are currently in a 2.5-hour load shedding in my suburb where I live. So I'm without electricity, but I'm on alternative Wi-Fi. So if there's issues, we'll try and sort them out, but I think we're good for now. Okay, so I'm going to just share some of our thoughts about the value of reading for pleasure, and help us to think about what we can do or do already to promote reading for pleasure. But before that, I'm going to quickly demonstrate the website of an initiative of Sadie's, which is called African Story. And so I'm going to move straight in. So the vision of African Storybook is to provide open access to picture storybooks in the languages of Africa to children for children's literacy, enjoyment, and imagination. It's in South Africa a 0-rated website, and it is free. It's also an alternative publishing model. And because all the storybooks on the website are openly licensed with a Creative Commons license, they are free. It also makes them available for print on demand and bulk printing, which means that they are accessible and affordable. And therefore, we hope to create a higher demand for storybooks in the languages of Africa, and thereby encourage children and adults to read more. And this is something that regular publishing can't do because their storybooks are copyrighted and they are more expensive and therefore less accessible. So that's why we like to think about it as an alternative publishing model. But I want to quickly show you, and this is where I hope that my technology works. So this is the website. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Good. So this is the website of the African Storybook. And you'll be able to see that on this website, there are currently 5,045 picture storybooks in 263 languages of Africa, with 8,776 translations. And the focus is very much on local African language. And so there's a lot of commission translation, but there's also community translation of storybooks, and people can self-publish on the website. I thought I won't go into too much detail about it, but let me see if I can demonstrate a little bit about what the website can offer. So if we want to read a storybook or find a storybook, we go to read, and we can choose from a couple of, I suppose they're like collections of storybooks. They're different collections created by different people in different ways. I'm going to choose from the collection of storybooks that's approved. And here you can see that when I come in here, I'm going to be looking for storybooks in English. And I'm going to search for a storybook called A Very Tall Man. And there the storybook is. And this is a storybook about a very tall man. His hoe was too short. His doorway was too low. His bed was too short. His bicycle was too short. This man was too tall. So he made a very long hoe handle. He made a very high door frame. He made a very long bed, and he bought a very high bicycle. He sat on a very high chair. He ate with a very long fork. He left his house and lived in a big forest. He lived for many years. So that's an English story about a very tall man. And you can see that it was written by Cornelius Wambi-Gulere and illustrated by Catherine Groenewald. It has a Creative Commons license, which means that you are free to download, copy and translate or adapt this story and use the illustrations as long as you attribute it. You'll also see that it's available in a number of languages, including Acholi, Afan-Oromo, Afrikaans, Amharic, and so on. This is all the languages that storybook is available in. Okay. Let me go back here because I also wanted to show how you can search here in other languages. So if, for example, you wanted to find any story, there we've got it searching in English, but let's choose another South African language like Tshivenda, and you'll be able to see that in Tshivenda here, we've got all of these storybooks on the website. You'll also see on the right-hand side here, there's a little number. And this number 3 means this storybook is written at a level 3, which means it's got a few more words on a page than a level 1, which is The Very Tall Man that we just read, which has very few words on a page. Okay. So if we happen to know the name of the book that we're looking for, and we want to find A Very Tall Man in Tshivenda, we're getting there. There is a quicker way to find it, but when I tested it earlier, Dorcas, it wasn't working. So I've got a workaround for it for this presentation. So here we are looking for a storybook called Munna Mulapfula Mulapfu. And this is the same storybook in Tshivenda. But you'll also see that you are able to not just look at all the translations and adaptations, but you can download that storybook to read. You can download it to print. And if you register on the website, you can adapt the book and translate the book. Okay. In addition, so that's a very brief, very quick overview of the African Storybook website. I think you can see the URL here. Please go and have a look and give us feedback, but enjoy reading the storybooks. Okay. There's also an app called the African Storybook Reader, which you can install on your mobile phone, and you can get access to the whole of the library offline. You only need to be online when you install and initially download the books, and then you can read your own, create your own library and read it offline. And that's what that looks like. And there's also an app called the African Storybook Maker, where on your mobile phone, you can create a storybook and publish it onto the African Storybook website. And as I mentioned earlier, different kinds of people use and create the storybooks. They've been used across Africa in many different ways through our storybook champions. And if there's time, maybe Dorcas can talk about that. They've also been collated into classroom library boxes or library boxes for early learning environments, and many more. You'll actually be able to go and read about some of the ways in which storybooks have been used on the website itself. But I want to talk a little bit now about reading for pleasure. And we're trying to think about how reading, getting access to storybooks like this can promote reading for pleasure and why that's important. So, drawing on neuroscience research, we know that the early years are the most active period for establishing neural connections that provide the foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. And it is in the first years of life that the brain forms most of its neural connections. Children's early experiences affect the development of these neural connections. And together, the emotional and physical health, social skills, and cognitive development, including literacy development, lay the foundation for future development and learning throughout a child's life. Several studies and education and child development experts make a strong case for the power of pleasure reading in developing a culture of reading as the foundation for early literacy and nurturing a lifelong love of reading alongside formal education. And it's been shown that reading for pleasure supports emotional development, exposing children to different ideas, cultures, and experience that promotes empathy, creativity, and critical thinking. When children read books that reflect their interests, experiences, and aspirations, children develop identity, confidence, and self-esteem. Reading for pleasure can provide children with a source of enjoyment and relaxation and escape from stress and anxiety. This promotes psychological well-being, stimulating the brain and improving its structure and function. Through reading for pleasure, Children learn to connect words with pictures, explore sound letter connections, understand new words, ask questions, predict and retell stories, both before formally learning to read and supporting the formal learning of reading. And all of that laying a strong foundation for lifelong learning. So, as I said, African Storybook promotes the idea of reading for pleasure and advocates for it in the use of our storybooks. And we wonder what your thoughts are about reading for pleasure, either as an adult or in the work that you do with children, with other adults, with youth. So again, deriving from the science behind early literacy and reading for pleasure, we try to highlight 6 principles at the heart of reading for pleasure. We need to enable access to storybooks in the languages of the children, allow children to choose what they read, thereby giving them agency, facilitate children engaging in active and playful reading, respond to children's needs and interests when we read with them, motivate children in positive ways so they want to read, and provide opportunities and challenges for children to grow and learn as young, lifelong readers. So let's stop and think for a minute and perhaps share either now or in the Q&A. In the work you do, how do you promote reading for pleasure? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And I will ask everyone to drop something in the chat or share with us later. How do you promote reading for pleasure? All right, I will now hand it over to Dr. Pasquarella. Adrian, go for it.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just share my screen and then we'll get started. Wow.
Thanks, Sheila, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for circulating your slide deck, and I'm sure people will make comments in the chat.
Thanks.
I'll do the same. So here are my slides. And then all right, and everyone can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. So I'm Adrian Pasquarella. I'm an associate professor at the University of Delaware, and I run the Multicultural Education and Literacy Development Lab. Our lab's mission is to co-create equitable, inclusive, and evidence-based literacy tools with and for communities. We're especially focused on multilingual learners and children growing up in historically marginalized, under-resourced, or even conflict-affected settings. I have partnered with Surinder Sharma at Smart Kids Club, which is an edtech company based in Delaware. It's truly an honor to be here today, and I come as an ally and a friend. I believe deeply that your network and others like it are the lifeblood of real change, and we need all of our voices to echo louder than the systems trying to silence and sideline entire generations. This work, our work, is about making sure every child has the tools to dream big, reach high, and live fully. At the core of learning is literacy. At the root of literacy is language. Today, I'll share how community, partnerships, research, and technology are coming together to help every child access high-quality books that read aloud with real human voices anytime, anywhere. We know the science. Children from multilingual and underserved communities face persistent literacy and academic gaps, and those gaps start really, really early. Studies show that early exposure to language, high-quality interactions, and regular book reading are some of the strongest predictors of future success in math, reading, and science. But when access is unequal, opportunities shrink and inequities grow. Access to books and rich language environments should be a right, not a privilege. One thing we've learned over and over, what happens at home matters. The home literacy environment has a protective effect. When families have access to books, engage in shared reading, and talk regularly with their children, we see stronger vocabulary, narrative skills, academic growth, even in the face of economic hardship. Our goal is to help families, especially those facing barriers, build that kind of environment. So what did we build? A growing library of over 1,200 children's books, narrated by real human voices, available via mobile apps, even offline. It's not robotic text-to-speech, but expressive human narration. Why? Because research shows kids learn more vocabulary, better comprehension, and feel more emotionally engaged when read to by a human voice. These books model not just the language, but the connection, the kind that helps children feel seen, heard, and loved. The library consists of comprehensive selection of text types, genres, topics, and content. Learning games at the end of the book support phonological awareness, word recognition, academic vocabulary, listening comprehension, and STEM concepts. We are developing more activities in innovative ways to engage children and improve academic skills. One thing I want to emphasize, we don't parachute in with prepackaged solutions. We co-develop every step of the way. We work with communities, not on them. In Namibia, that means partnering with libraries, teachers, and the Ministry of Education to make sure books align with local languages and cultural values. In the US, we're co-designing workshops with parents and educators, running usability studies, and collecting feedback from Head Start centers and community groups. Partnership is not just a method, it's a mindset. The library is already making a big impact, thanks to inspiring collaborations with organizations committed to early literacy and equity. In Wilmington, Delaware, we're partnering with Head Starts to onboard families and boost shared reading at home, and we've been working with them all year, and it's going great. In Philadelphia, we have centers like Children's Playhouse and Soane's Christian Academy that are bringing the library to historically underserved communities. At Dell State University, we have recurring parent engagement events, and our next one's tomorrow. And we're also using the Delaware Association for Education of Young Children. We're working together to expand access and gather vital feedback. And in Namibia, we're supporting a national rollout rooted in local co-development, implementation through schools and public libraries. We are actively seeking support from federal and foundation grants to deepen our impact and strengthen our connections. And together with our current and future partners, we can grow this movement across languages, borders, and generations. What makes this digital library powerful is its scalability. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It is adaptable. We've designed it to grow alongside local needs, welcome Indigenous stories, regional languages, and evolving educational goals. Whether in urban neighborhoods or remote villages, the library can be customized to reflect voices, values, and cultures of the communities it serves. But we know that sustainable impact does not happen in isolation. So we offer an invitation to educators, researchers, funders, and community organizations. Join us. Let's learn languages, share knowledge, and build capacity together. Because literacy isn't just a skill, it's a bridge to opportunity, to belonging, and to a better future for every child. A single book can change a life, but an accessible library of books, ones that speak their languages, reflect their world, and help them learn to read and dream, can change the world. Let's build that world together. And before I close, I want to take a special moment to thank someone who has been truly instrumental in this work, Surinder Sharma. Surinder is not just our developer partner. She is the heart and soul behind the technology that powers the library. Her unwavering commitment to children, to equity, to making knowledgeable accessible for everyone is a daily reminder of what this mission is all about. She embodies the very spirit of the work, quiet brilliance, relentless dedication, and a deep belief that every child in every corner of the world deserves the chance to learn, dream, and thrive. Thanks, Surinder. It's been wonderful working with you. That's it, references, and then there's two other pieces. One's a little bit of information on our Namibia Reads project, and then the last slide is a link to a poster that we presented at the Literacy Research Association back in December. It just kind of gives a little bit more detail and overview of the project we're working on. So thanks so much for listening, and I'm happy to talk and share and keep on working.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adrian. All right. I will open it. I'll open the floor to any questions. Those questions could either be directed to Adrian or Sheila. Anyone have questions?
Or a comment to tell us
Yes.
how you promote pleasure of reading. It's obvious that Adrian and Surinder do.
Sheila, I had a question for you about translations and how you work that, how you've worked that on this huge library with all these languages. Like, what's the kind of process of, you know, translating it and then checking its quality and its relevance?
Dorcas, shall I do a dirty on you?
Just do it, Sheila. Go, and then I'll add if there is anything to add.
Okay, so we do a mixture actually of commissioning translations. And when we commission translations, we have essentially people working together. So we've over the years realized that you can go on forever and ever and ever, because what someone thinks is a good translation, someone else thinks could be done differently, even in the same language. And so what we've settled on is a process where two people will do a translation together. So one person will translate it and hand it to another person who speaks the same language. And then they might find ways they would say it more differently or different words. And then they come together and have a little bit of a Barney and a debate and reach agreement on what it should be like. And so we've kind of set a limit on it because it could go on forever. But we realize that there are still going to be different opinions about how that language is spoken. Because we're promoting local language, you'll have different languages spoken differently in fairly close regions. And so really one of the unique things, I suppose, about this website is that you can translate yourself. So if you're still not happy with the translation that's on the website, you can come in and register and find a storybook and translate it yourself. Of course, then what you've written isn't going to be quality assured necessarily in the same way with a partner. But we do have a takedown policy on the website so that if either something gets badly misinterpreted or there is stuff that's translated that isn't suitable, we can take it down. Dorcas, anything else?
Just add that if we are working with the Ministry of Education or department in any country, and sometimes we get an opportunity where somebody from the ministry is present and they might say this aligns well with the curriculum or it aligns well with the culture, etc. Then they give their views. And we, like last year, we worked with Right to Play from Mali, and they brought in some people from the Ministry of Education, and they gave their input to the manuscripts before we published them, so that when we went to the stage of publishing, they had actually accepted the manuscripts, they had accepted the images before we even published the storybooks. The same thing happened with Rwanda, where the Rwanda Education Board had an input, and then they changed some words. They said, this doesn't sound well, especially in the context of the genocide, things like that. So we had to take in some of those changes. And then by the time we published them, then it is what they wanted them in the Kinyarwanda language. So where we have an opportunity to work with a Department of Education and they input, then we take that into consideration, but it doesn't happen all the time.
Vinod, I saw you wanted, sorry, Vinod can go and then Judith.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you to both of you. The presentations are fantastic. My question is, I wanted to know sort of where and when children get to do this reading. You know, is it done at home on parents' smartphones? Is it done at a center on tablets? Is it done on computers? Is it, you know, where and when does this happen? And the other question I had is, are there subsets then that, like, children in Rwanda will only see these and children in Mali will see those? Or is it more a factor of you're creating materials for that area, but really the app has everything available?
Yeah, so I can answer first. So to your first question, so it's available on the Apple, the Chromebook, and the Google Play Store. We see it being, it could, like, we're working in different places. In the US, primarily, we're positioning it as a tool for parents to support reading at home, not so much as a school-based resource, because of a lot of bureaucratic red tape is probably the shortest way to get through that. In Namibia, it's both. There's a big strategy for home reading, but we're also working with schools and libraries more carefully, and thinking about how they could use the resources in their settings. So we're open to it all, but it's more of what the users want, and that's kind of what's guiding us initially. In terms of the app, we see it being this, like, there's a large level that's this comprehensive library that has everything, but that can be very unmanageable for the average user. So we have a version for early learning, right? Like birth to 5 kind of group, where we've shrunken the app, right? We've taken all the hard stories that we know are not developmentally appropriate, right? And made it simplified and streamlined it. So that's kind of our idea, is like, there'll be some pieces that are, like, great for everything. It's part of the infrastructure. Like, everyone needs the letter sounds, letter knowledge kind of stuff. But then there will be this curated, specific, apps for different regions, apps for different countries, apps for different needs. So we see it kind of being a mix of everything and a little bit of a fusion at the same time.
Can I add something?
Go ahead, Dorcas. Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, as you know, we really don't work directly with children as such or with schools. We work with partners. And in the last few years, we have had a number of people we call champions. These are individuals in various countries. And some of them happen to be teachers, some are librarians, and others are just literacy activists who have access to children. And so when they use the reader, they work with the children and help them to choose the books, and then, help them to read together and use storybooks in different ways, as after reading, maybe acting out the story, or just talking about it, or, maybe coming up with a different ending to the story. So they use storybooks in various ways, in libraries especially. Where we have a champion who is a teacher, then they try to introduce that in their own school. Like, I have an example here in Kenya, a champion who works with a local literacy organization. It's called the Rift Valley Reading Association. So she, with these other schools in this whole block, she's tried to introduce the use of the storybooks on the school tablets, where she assists them to download the storybooks onto the tablets to use for library lessons. Because you see, we are not targeting a curriculum of any particular country. Ours are reading for pleasure. They're supplementary readers. So where a person is a teacher and they can access children, they use them in a classroom setup or for library lessons, etc. But in other contexts, we have had, other people using storybooks to just help children, probably they don't have any other resource to use. And as Sheila mentioned, we have, library boxes where we do the printing, and we work together with other partners who are working with children so that they can use them now to help children to read.
All right. Thank you, Dorcas. Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Adrian. If there are any questions, I'll ask that we drop them in the chat, and then for both Sheila and Adrian, I'll ask that you drop your contact information in the chat if somebody would like to follow up. I'll now hand it over to Aaron, who has a few interesting things to discuss. Aaron?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So we talked, there were a couple presentations in our last meeting, and AI came up. And then Carrie and Laura and I have been trading some emails talking more about AI. And so this could be kind of the ethics of AI, could be a future discussion that we have in this group. So I'm just going to paste in the chat some examples of what people in this group might already be doing with AI. If you could paste kind of the one or two things that you are personally doing, or that lots of people in your group are doing, I think that could affect maybe a poll we create to send to the rest of the Literacy League COP. Because if everybody's using AI for text and nobody's using it for images, then that's what we should talk about. I'm doing a lot more exploring images. And it could be a really interesting topic, because someone might have a plan that works well in their country legally and ethically, but in another part of the world, people say, no, this is both not legal and also considered unethical. Once we do a poll, then we could say, okay, this is the part of AI that most of the group is interested in. We could maybe find an expert in that specific domain to come and talk to us. I also think it could be really interesting to share case studies. So I'll share something very quickly. We paid for a local illustrator in Oaxaca, Mexico, to make 350 images. We own those images. I'm experimenting with creating a larger base of images based on those original images. We own those images, but do we owe something to the original illustrators? Could we go to them and make an arrangement that will pay them per image a lower rate than the original amount, but kind of in perpetuity give them, pay them per image. So anyway, just paste in the chat if you could, or send me an email. I'll put my email in here. Just the ways in which you're currently using AI. And if you're not, don't be bashful. That's totally fine. But that's good to know, right? If most of this group isn't using AI for anything, then that's good to know. So anyway, this is a potential future COP topic, and we just want to tailor it to what most of you would be interested in. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron. All right, so we did have on the agenda a round robin of updates, but we are coming up to the hour. So I will ask that if you have information you'd like to share with the larger group, please drop it in the meeting slide deck. I will send out an email follow-up to this meeting with both documents, so the agenda and then the meeting slide deck, and the updates will be on there. I will also look at the slide deck to get any information that we can include in the newsletter. So if you'd like to have any of your information featured in our next issue, please feel free to drop that there, or send me an email with some copies, so maybe a paragraph or two, and then some pictures to go with, and I'll be more than happy to include that in the newsletter. And then a final announcement, our next Literacy League meeting is happening on the 14th of August. That's Thursday, and the same time, 10 to 11 a.m. EST. I will send, besides the follow-up email that I'll be sending tomorrow or Monday, I will send a reminder closer to that date for you to RSVP. If you'd like to present during the next meeting, please shoot me an email as well, and we can then figure out next steps. I have dropped my email in the chat, but I will hand it over to Tony to wrap up.
No, that was great. Yeah, we really appreciate your participation and any suggestions for format for the event to even be more efficient. We had 2 great presentations, and then Aaron, thank you for following up on the considerations of AI. We know any one of these topics could justify the entire hour, so we're trying to keep it compact. So if there's any recommendations about formats for future meetings, or even if there's other topics you'd like to talk about, if people raise their hands and say, I'd really like to have a literacy meeting on this topic, let's say AI, then just let us know and we could send it to the list, and then there could be another meeting. You don't have to wait until August. So we encourage folks to take leadership as well.
All right then. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, whether that's the evening for you or actually the rest of your day. It was wonderful seeing you all.